Welcome to Washington in Focus Daily. It is Wednesday, June 17th of 2026. I'm Carlene Johnson, the Center Square, Washington's state government reporter. Okay, let's start out. You and I are in the wrong business, or at least I am for sure, at least if we wanted to get rich. If you happen to be one of the state employees working at the University of Washington, or maybe at the Department of Corrections as a nurse, you're doing pretty well in many cases. We have about 154 to 156,000. I've seen some different numbers today, state employees that you, the taxpayer, pay their salary working in state government and for various agencies. Just go back a few years ago to 2023, and there were less than 126,000 state employees. So that means we have 30,000 more state taxpayer funded employees than we had just 3 years ago. That's a pretty remarkable increase and growth in state government. And we wonder why we're always in a deficit, right? Over 50% of all state employees' salaries go to higher education. The University of Washington alone, get this, they account for 41% of all state salaries. That is a huge percentage. And the highest paid UW employee is the head football coach. Not really a big surprise, right? He was paid $5.9 million last year. Actually took a pay cut from the year before. That was kind of interesting. The head basketball coach at the University of Washington was paid $3.2 million last year. But there's even a professor on the campus who made more than $1 million last year. Now, Department of Corrections employees, you can see here, including nurses, check this out. Some of them made more than $400,000 last year. Now, of course, being a nurse at the Department of Corrections, working with inmates, that's a dangerous job, potentially justified salary, and some of that is likely coming from overtime pay. But there are a bunch of psychiatrists at corrections making well over $300,000. So in all, you've got state employee compensation generally accounting for between about 23 and 30% of the entire state budget. That's pretty remarkable. I knew it was a good chunk of the budget. I didn't know it was up to 30% of the entire budget is going to pay for state employees. Now, Ryan Frost is Washington Policy Center's Tax and Budget Policy Center director. He told me this morning that in 2025, the state budget grew by nearly $2 billion just to cover the raises that state employees got. Let me say that again. The budget went up in 2025 by nearly $2 billion just to cover the raises that state employees got. So that's just the hikes.
Anybody who looked at the budget that passed in 2025, they saw that the biggest line item increase was state employee salary. And there were a lot of cuts to make up, to be able to fund that $2 billion, which is about what it was, just shy of $2 billion, just in net increases. So not the step increases that were already kind of built into a lot of the employee salaries. That was just like net new spending for the bargaining agreements. They cut Medicaid, they cut the Department of Children, Youth, and Family. There's a lot of cuts they made to fund those. And so I think from the outside perspective, the problem is that when we're running multi-billion-dollar deficits, if a private company has no money, they don't then pass out $2 billion in employee raises. Only the state manages to do that. And this has been kind of an ongoing problem in Washington for a long time, is that we have zero seat at the table when those negotiations are being made. Every collective bargaining agreement made by the public employees are done with their unions and with the director of OFM, who's appointed by the governor. There's no taxpayer advocate at all. The legislators get this bargaining agreement in front of them, and it's either yes or no. They can't amend it. They can't do anything. So until, frankly, there's a seat at the table from the taxpayer perspective, and sorry, I don't believe that there is one now. I don't believe the governors and his representatives at the table have the taxpayers' best interests in mind. then these types of things are just going to keep happening over and over again.
So, again, the issue here for many is transparency or lack thereof. Governor Bob Ferguson's Office of Financial Management director goes in behind closed doors, and I'm sure some of her staff as well, and they sit with union leadership, Washington State Federation for State Employees, and other union leaders. And I don't know how it works. If the union guys go in and say, "This is what we want, this is what we demand," and then OFM responds on behalf of the governor and says, "Yeah, that's too much. We can't really afford it this year. We're in another budget deficit, as I'm sure you're aware." How that negotiation goes, we don't know. We don't even have an opportunity to find out, even through public records requests. So it's all done in secret.
There's not a state that's more secretive than Washington's, in the fact that we have zero light. We can't shine a single light into how that negotiation goes. Even the you can't even like PDR those negotiations to see what the process was, what the starting point was, what the negotiation ended up being. Was there actually even a negotiation, or did they just give what they wanted? I'm sure there are other states. I'm sure there's some other large states. I don't know how California does theirs, but I imagine it's much different than ours. But there's not a way to keep it hidden from the taxpayers more than the way that we do it.
Now, Frost and WPC told me that since 2022, just 4 years ago, compensation for state employees has gone up about 30%. That's in just 4 years. That is remarkable. You didn't get that at your job, I'm guessing. Probably not. Not even a cost of living raise, maybe. We all should have been government employees. The other significant conflict here is that these union groups are the ones that give large campaign donations to the governor and Democratic leadership and their campaigns. It certainly could present the appearance, at least, of a conflict of interest. Again, we don't get to find out what goes on behind those closed doors in collective bargaining for state workers, but it's your money on the line. And as you heard Ryan Frost at WPC say, other states don't do it like this. Why we have a complete and total lack of transparency here? Maybe it's something that lawmakers should consider amending.